Hello and welcome to episode 9 of the Croydon Constitutionalist Pubcast. It's the first pubcast we've done in a while, but clearly we've not been drinking enough. My co-host today is Mike Swadling, and we are here in the Pembroke in Coulsdon. Mike, most important question, what are we drinking?
Well, hello Dan, hello all. We're drinking a nice bottle of Sierra Nevada Pale Ale. We've gone for the bottle because it was available there. A very nice pint indeed.
Indeed it is. So, Mike, in the aftermath of the recent general election, you've written an article for our website in which you've pointed out that whilst Labour's spending policies were roundly rejected, notwithstanding that, the Conservatives have made quite a lot of spending pledges. And in your article, you raised some concerns and raised some suggestions about how the government could perhaps spend money more wisely. Mike, why don't you talk us through some parts of your article?
Yeah, Dan, thanks. So, as you said there, everyone seems to be growing government at the moment. It can't grow forever. We can't spend money we haven't got forever. I hope everyone listening to this knows that for their own lives. It's true for the country as well. And I just wanted to come up with a few ideas that the government could use, or I believe in, that would allow you to shrink the size of government without going back on key manifesto commitments on the NHS, on education. They're not going to be gone back on. That's pretty clear. But we don't need government involved in everything in our lives. So one of the things, just briefly touched on, there's quite a few on there, was looking at merging all of the quangos into their government departments. So quangos are quasi-autonomous. Why? Why do they need to be? We pay for them. Why can't they be accountable to us and to the government? They're all associated with government departments. Merge them in. People talked about bonfires of quangos and getting rid of them. It's never happened. I suspect many of them do useful things, or they do things at least. Merge them in. Get rid of their separate comms teams, their IT systems, their offices, their boards of directors, their executives, their own pension schemes, and all of these things that these quango organisations have, and just bring them straight into the civil service system that's already there. You cut a huge amount of overhead cost off by doing that. There may be a small amount of cost to merge them in. There really shouldn't be. You can let things follow through on their natural time. But just ratchet down government, stop all these lovely luxurious jobs on these governing bodies of these organisations, and save us a bit of money in the process. Among the many other things I've talked about, I've also mentioned about repaying debt. We are quite close to no longer be borrowing for certainly revenue spending. We are borrowing for capital spending, and I always question sometimes what's capital and revenue with government, but for revenue spending, we're quite close to zero. So why don't we start repaying some of it? We've got this debt of 1.821... I can't even say it. It's 1.8 trillion. It's 1,821 billion pounds. That's £27,000 for every person. That's all the newborns, all the pensioners, all the working age people in Britain. It's a huge amount of debt. We need to get rid of it. There are lots of countries out there that have sovereign trust funds. We don't have that. Sovereign wealth funds. We don't have that. We're never going to get that anytime soon. But let's start repaying the debt. Be it a just giving page, give people some sort of accommodation if they give some of their wealth to the state when they die. Maybe you ring fence some of an existing tax to go to repayment of debt, but start repaying it. And the really important reason for doing that is once government starts repaying some debt, all of a sudden it doesn't make sense to borrow anymore. How about setting out a process that says we're repaying the debt and get people behind that? And suddenly they'd be much less keen on people coming forward and saying, let's just borrow and spend some more.
Mike, one of the other things you talked about in that article was money purchase pensions. Now, it's just dawned on me that one of the things with quangos actually is that once it's a quango rather than a government department and it's therefore outside of the civil service, the people who work there, perhaps in a very swanky building or what have you, they don't get the same pensions as the civil service. So I wonder if they would argue that there's some savings there perhaps in the longer term. Who knows? But you talked about money purchase pensions. Do you want to talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is probably the idea on that's the big cost saver. Everyone new joining the civil service, let's move them onto a money purchase pension scheme from the current final salary or whole life earning schemes that civil servants and local government officers and other organised types tend to be on. Ultimately, all pensions should be money purchased and kind of are. You put money into a pension scheme, you hope there's money at the other end of it to pay out. And they may have promised you the earth, but if ain't no money there, you ain't necessarily getting it. Now, in the case of government, they just borrow or print money or tax us more to do it. But why not bring civil servants in line with the rest of us? And the idea behind these proposals here is they're pretty non-controversial. Do it for all new entrants. Don't change the people that are there. Don't change the historic funding that's already gone in. You could do. But all new entrants to the civil service, put them onto a money purchase scheme. They've never known anything different. There may actually be a slight increase in cost initially because you've got to actually fund their pension. But start on a footing so that at some point in about 30, 40 years from now, we no longer have this burning legacy of debt for people's pensions.
That's great, yes. I wholeheartedly agree with that because it's definitely going to be a debt that's going to, well, if they carry on the way they are, it's never going to get paid off. And if we can start paying off some of the debt now and stop increasing that debt by way of taking on liabilities for the future, then that would be great. But in any event, thanks for that, Mike. Your article's up there on our website now. You talk about a few more things as well. Please, listeners, do go along and read that and do comment and do contact us if you'd like to discuss anything else around it. Until next time, thanks very much, Mike. And it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Goodbye.